Hello, it's Siddharth, and in this video I'm going to be explaining variables, constants, and data types in Python. A variable is an identifier which can be changed whilst the program is running. However, a constant is a variable that cannot be changed whilst the program is running. In Python, constants aren't really a set thing like in other programming languages, but if you're going to use a constant in Python, it should be in all uppercase to signify that it's not going to change. Here's some examples of data types. In this video, I'm going to be covering integer, real, boolean, so true and false, and string. These are the most basic types of data types in there and the most useful ones you should know about. I will cover the rest of them, such as lists, tuples, and so on. And here are some examples of the data types and variables. As you can see, the variable name is being stored as tiger2, which is a string. So tiger2 is being assigned to the variable name. If I'm going to call the variable name, such as over here, if I do print name, tiger2 should come up. And as you can see, tiger2 comes up. And below is an example of an integer. Integer is assigned to main underscore ammo, and it needs to be an underscore or like this, as if there's a space in a variable name, then it will not work. There's a syntax error. Below that is an example of a real. In Python, real numbers are called float. Float are anything that isn't a whole number. So in this case, is decimal point 0, and that signifies that this is a float. If I did this, it would work as well. However, this will be an integer. And below that is an example of a boolean. Boolean, as shown here, is true and false. And right now, the variable name cool is being assigned to this boolean value. Now, if I was to make this a constant, I would do that. Now, technically, I can change this. However, it's standard to use all uppercase letters for constants in Python. And here are some examples of how you can utilize these variables and data types. Say if I was making a game where the user picks a vehicle and drives around with it, and seeing as it's a bit of a war game, then it will be they could shoot or that type of thing. So over here, we'll be printing you're driving then the name of a tank. Now, this is one way to do typecasting. However, be sure to add spacebar between here and here, as if you don't, then it will look like this. See the difference? Another way you could do it is by commas. With commas, you don't need any space. You can do it straight up like this, and that will give you the intended output. There is another way to do this, and that is called f-strings. There are 3 types of f-strings. However, the most common, and in my opinion, the easiest one to wrap your head around and easiest one to utilize, is the one I'm about to show you. For this, you want to do f and then in quotation marks what you want to type in. So in this case, I'm going to do you have X amount of ammo, let's say. So in which case, I'll do you have, then in curly brackets, you put the variable name, and then you carry on, or you can leave it like this if necessary. So you have something amount of ammo. And there you see. Now there's other stuff you can do with strings and integers, floats, booleans, and that is changing them in a program. So let's say I'm changing the vehicle and I want to pick a motorcycle instead. So then the name would be motorcycle. And now if I print the name, I can spell print quick. Motorcycle will come up instead of tiger2. And you can also change the value. So if I was to, let's say, drive around a lot, so my fuel isn't at 860, I could do fuel equals fuel divided by let's say I'm driving for a good amount of time and I use half my fuel, like that. And then when I print fuel, half of the amount will come up. And if I drive around in like an odd way, so let's say 3, then you can see the decimal points. Now, to prevent the decimal points, they can do floor division. I will go over this in a later video, but this basically means it truncates it or rounds it down. And it's important to remember that you have to set the variable like this. You can't just print it out. For example, if I didn't have this statement and instead I did variable equals fuel like this, sure, it will say 430. However, if I then printed fuel out, it would still remain as 860 as we're not changing the variable name fuel. And we could do something similar with Boolean. We could set cool to false, like that. And then once you print it, print cool. Cool is now false. However, if you are gonna change a variable, then it will be a variable should be lowercase instead of uppercase. And there's another way you can shape around or manipulate variables and strings, and that is through this use. Where you do string or integer or float, whatever, and put brackets there. So let's say if I want to do, let's say I want to print, if I can spell print quickly, print fuel as a string. I'll do print str, then I put fuel in there, and this is now a string. And to check that, if I do this, if I actually set fuel to as a string, and then I do type fuel, it will come up as a string. If I print it out, then you can see that will come out as a string. And it's not, and that is because I didn't actually set the variable. There we go. If I do this, then it will become as a string. So that's really important to remember to, if you're going to change a variable, make sure you actually do variable equals and so on, as otherwise you might just change how it looks on the outside, so to speak. For example, if I didn't do fuel equals this, then as you saw, it would still remain as a float. You can also do the same with Boolean. However, with Boolean, it's set to either 1 or 0. So if I do main underscore ammo equals fuel main underscore ammo, if I then print this out, you can see that it is a Boolean. However, right now it is at the Boolean value 1. So if I then do print main underscore ammo, you can see it's set to true. However, if main underscore ammo was 0, then it will be set to false. If it was -3, it will be set to true. Anything that isn't a 0 is true, and anything that is a 0 is false. And this works similar with string as well. So if I did name here instead, you can see it's true, and then for name, if I did this empty like this, so not even white space, then it's false. And be sure to remember that white space is a character, so it will be true now, and that's because the space in there counts as a character. It's called white space. So it's important to remember that distinction. Now there is a way to convert integers to floats and floats to integers, and that is the same method. So if I want to convert main ammo to a float, I'll do main ammo is float and then main underscore number 92.0. And you can do it the other way around as well. As you can see, 860. Now, what if it isn't 0.0? What happens if it's 6? Then it just gets rounded down. So no matter what this value is, it's gonna just get rounded down. Even if it's a 9, it's getting rounded down. However, as soon as it's 61.0, let's say, then it's now 61. So that's important to remember when converting integers to floats and floats to integers. Now, there's other ways to assign variables and the values to them. One way is like this, where you do variable, variable, and so on. And on the other side, you do the value assigned to those variables separated by a comma. And they don't all have to be the same data type. For here, you can see that quad underscore z is equal to a string 118.0. And if I print the type of that, if I can spell type correctly, you can see that it's a string. Now, another way that you can write code and represent it is by using semicolons. In other programming languages, semicolon usually means it's the end of something. Kind of similar like that in Python. You don't necessarily need to use it, and it can look a bit confusing, but you can 100% use it. So if I do z is equal to 2, let's say, you could do semicolon, and then this acts as a new line. So you can do print z, and it'll work just fine. However, if the semicolon wasn't there, there's a syntax error. But you can imagine if you're doing hundreds lines of codes and every time you need a new line, you do this, it's going to look confusing. But that is a way that you can do it to kind of understand what's going on and what's being printed out in coordination to what. Other than that, that is it for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.